Go.
So, Dave, I appreciate you getting me back on. But I was beating myself up, not giving a huge shout out to the team that made Tennessee Prep, the powerhouse, in this land of Tennessee and Memphis. My 2018 USA Prep National Championship team, I want to give those guys a shout out. I had two guys on that team that had we had their jerseys retired. One from Harlem, New York, Tyrese Patterson, the son of Kenny Patterson. Anybody from New York know about Kenny Patterson being a legend that he is, becoming a All-American, going into DePaul, being drafted to the Golden State Warriors. To have his son, at Tennessee Prep, was major. What was even more major is, Tyrese having the steals record here at Tennessee Prep, where he promised me when he was in 10th grade, when he transferred down here from the charter school, he said, Coach Rayford, I'm gonna win you a national title. So in 2018, he fulfilled that promise of winning the national title. We're now, just speaking on Tyrese real quick, goes to Navarro Junior College in Texas, where he's the all-time leading steals for Navarro, coming right out of Harlem. He's all-time leading steals, single season with 96, and I think he's close to like 200 in 2 years at Navarro. But he did the same thing for Tennessee Prep 3 years in a row, just competing at a high level. We had the best backcourt that year with Damian Ball, who's at Memphis, and Tavion Cullum, who's at Ole Miss. Two high major backcourt, players for me. We had 7'3" Manny Imofia from, Nigeria. Sean Cornelius from, he was the MVP of the national championship game. He was from Houston. Jalen Lee from Atlanta, 6'8" guard. Rylan Franklin from Atlanta. One of my favorite guys, Todd Franklin from the Bronx, New York. Todd Green. But I just wanted to give a shout out to those guys. They made my job a lot easy, when you got talent, but they allowed me to coach them very hard. We've had well up to that year, like 146 coaches coming to practice, all Division I. You would think that it was a, EYBL tournament or, Under Armour tournament, the way the coaches was lined up at the baseline and the sideline, coming to see our, that championship team before they won the championship team. But definitely wanted to give a shout out to those guys, and appreciate you for getting me back on to give those guys a shout out, man. Because 2018 was a memory that I'll never forget, man. It just happened and boom, we beat Our Savior Lutheran out of Long Island. We beat a couple of teams out of North Carolina, one out of South Carolina. So again, shout out to that national championship team. And all the other guys I didn't mention, man. There's a lot of guys from Tennessee Prep, 7'3" Chris Sodom, Will Mangum, those guys paved the way for, the guys of today, like, Kentrell Blocker and, Caleb Horton and James Flippin. So again, Dave, I appreciate it, man, where I can come back on instantly and just, give those guys a shout out, and appreciate it, man.
All right, what's up, everybody? This is episode 102 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to everybody that's been supporting us thus far. For those that haven't seen any of our episodes, go check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. But before we start, shout outs to our sponsors, the Players Circle, a brand new interactive app that's dedicated to all the basketball players around the nation. If you have highlights, pictures, put them on the app. And if you like cool merch, go download that app on the App Store. It's the Players Circle. Go check it out, you guys. But without further ado, we have a very special guest tonight. He hails from upstate New York, but now is a coach at Tennessee Prep in Memphis, Tennessee. He's coached on the Division I level. He's coached JUCO, and now he's coaching in the grind session. Tonight, we have with us Mr. Harold Rayford Jr. Coach, thank you for coming on to share your story, man.
No question, Dave. Thanks for having me.
So my very first question for you is, what's Harold Rayford's coaching philosophy?
Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. You know, you got to have discipline to achieve your goals. You know, in order to accomplish them, you got to have discipline. So ultimately, you know, it's all about discipline, you know, and the way I view everything in life is business. So if you handle your business and you have discipline within the business, you can achieve whatever you got your mindset to.
Indeed. So let's start from the very beginning. So when did basketball first begin for you?
Well, it started, of course, you know, for those that don't know me, you know, I'm from Newburgh, New York, which is, you know, about an hour upstate from New York City. I come from a basketball family back in Newburgh.
All right.
Got you. So I got my start in Newburgh. You know, my dad put the ball in my hand. My dad being a coach for many years. But when I got my start at the AME Zion Church, big part of my upbringing, you know, instilled discipline, taught me how to speak, you know, clearly in front of folks, you know, especially when you're in church and you're learning how to, you know, your speeches during Christmas and Easter. But I got my start at the AME Zion Church when my dad became, you know, the head of the basketball program there at the church. My father's been doing it for over 35 years in Newburgh. So, you know, you're talking about many years being invested with the game of basketball. So, you know, not just, you know, knowing the players, but actually being taught how to play the right way, you know, from a very, very young age.
Indeed. So let's talk about your dad, Mr. Harold Rayford Sr. What was it like playing for him at a young age? What was it like playing for your dad, honestly?
You know, other kids in the community, like the only reason you playing is because your dad. So I had the additional pressure of, you know, running miles, putting up shots, you know, trying to figure it out. But my father never gave me nothing that I didn't deserve, whether it was playing time. A lot of times I came off the bench, you know, I wasn't your most athletic, but I knew the game and I was competitive. There's one thing about it, you know, when I coach, that he's investing in me, he took away from the family. So, you know, that stuff was very important, you know, watching my dad and, you know, not wanting to show, you know, of course, wanting to show him that I can play, but knowing that it's an investment.
Yeah, man, well said. You know what I'm saying? Like, every kid wants to please their parents. You know, that's the most
Correct.
important thing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, talk about basketball in Newburgh. You know, what's the basketball culture like out there? For those that don't know.
Man, Newburgh is tough, man. You know, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to play high school ball in Newburgh. You know, I had a run-in with the coach at the time, you know, who didn't like my father for what he's done in the community. Wow. And he took it out on me. But, you know, Newburgh is real.
Oh, so you said the coach took it out on you because of your dad for whatever reason. Like, talk about that story.
Really not much to talk about. You know, I worked my behind off every day. I knew the game. You know, I wasn't your biggest kid, but, you know, I wasn't the guy because, you know, of course, politics was other guys in front of me. You know, as I've gotten older, I learned how to deal with it, you know, and wanting to give kids this opportunity at the level I'm at, you know, to showcase what they can do. It don't matter how small, how tall you are, just, you know, if you got the heart and desire to get better, that was important. So, you know, the biggest thing is learning from the culture. You know, Newburgh is like, you know, if you look at it, you can see some parts of Newburgh being like, you know, Brooklyn, and then you got some parts of Newburgh like it's Harlem, you know, the Bronx. So it's, you know, coming from Newburgh, you know, you get a vast variety of culture. You know, culture in Newburgh is very, you know, heavy, you know, with the Black community, you got the Hispanic community, and you got the white community. It's very diverse up there for those that don't know.
Yeah, because everybody in the city, they look at y'all as upstate, but we all know that y'all basically across the Hudson River. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about some tournaments that you played in when you were younger. Like, what were some of your favorite tournaments to play in?
One growing up was definitely the Gym Rat Challenge in Albany. That was big. Gym Rat was always big every year. Going to get a chance to get up to Albany, see about 100, 200 teams playing that event. Getting down to New York City to play, at the Gaucho Place gymnasium. That was big growing up. Had a chance to play against some really, really good talent coming out of the Gaucho program. Riverside, we played those guys, when they had Big Cigari and a couple others. Another big tournament that I could think of was the Long Island, over there in Long Island Lightning, playing for the regional championships so we can compete down in Florida. That was big every year, playing against some of the better teams at the time. So those definitely ring a bell when you say, talk about those, tournaments.
All right. So let's talk about your high school years. What was it? Where did you play ball at?
Well, I just played for my father. When I didn't get a chance to play high school ball, I just played with my pops. We were playing CYO leagues, AAU leagues. But summer to summer, he always put me in camps. So I showed out in the Siena camp, showed out in the Albany camps when, give or take, just getting more extra skill work and getting a chance to network too. Never too young to network.
So you went to Newburgh Free Academy.
I did.
Oh wow,
I did.
they were a pretty good program in like the late 2000s, man. I remember that kid hit the shot in
Gold,
I think it
yeah.
was the Section 1 championship game,
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken.
So just to give you a little bit of insight, my father put together that team years ago. My dad had those guys since they was in like third and fourth grade. So when Will
Wow.
Belton hit the shot, you had Marcus Henderson, you had Damian Cowser, Pat Johnson, you had Pooh. Those guys could play, man. Like, but those guys stuck together. And they had the twins, the Sturdivant twins. Those guys played together ever since, I can remember. I remember having Marcus Henderson, big time player out of Newburgh, having him in the gym 1 o'clock in the morning with my dad. You know what I mean? Just getting those extra reps. So it wasn't no surprise to us that they were going to compete at some point in their high school career for a championship because they've been doing it for a while.
Wow, man, that's big right there. What year did you graduate from Newburgh Free?
So I graduated Newburgh Free Academy in 2001. I actually had a chance to walk on and earn a scholarship at Virginia State University back in 2001. But some turn of events that didn't last very long. I wish, my parents would have entertained prep school at the time because, entering college at 17 years of age, I wasn't ready mentally, especially going down to the South from 17, turning 18. I wasn't ready for the responsibilities. Although they taught me, right from wrong, I just wasn't ready, which, shortly after, I had a chance to find my way in, and I found Ulster County Community College. So once, my stint at Virginia State happened, I think I was there for like 3 semesters. It didn't, it ended very quick, but then I found myself at Ulster where, I became a man and I was able to develop my game and do the right things by the game underneath, the head coach, Corey Chambers.
Okay. So you played 2 years at Ulster. Well, talk
I
about
did.
what was Ulster like?
Coming from an HBCU to, Ulster was a complete, culture shock for me. I didn't see, a lot of people like us on the campus, but I needed that. I needed that for my personal growth and also knowing how to interact with others. So, Ulster being dead smack in the middle of nowhere in Stone Ridge, New York, it allowed me to network and communicate with folks of, they're not like me. And it actually helped me tremendously with who I am today. Now, a lot, outside of my parents being who they are you know, my mom being a pastor, my dad being a coach. I think a big part of it was finding who you are. And I had a chance to do that when I went to Ulster.
So after Ulster, where did you go next?
Uh, actually, really got into coaching during my time. So I had a chance to work with my father with the Newburgh Zion Lions from 2004 to about 2007. And I had a really, really good group of guys. We're like number 2, number 1 in the state at the time in AAU basketball. So I kind of took, you know, that time after Ulster. During that time at Ulster, I was still coaching, giving back to my community. So 2007, I landed a really, really good gig with the New York Knicks. I was on the player development side with Dan Gladstone and with the community. So I'll go out to different boroughs and train with some of the players back in 2007. I also had a chance to work with the Hudson Valley Hawks underneath Robert McMillan, who's, you know, another big name in Newburgh. I had a chance to learn under him, you know, on the professional side, because the Hudson Valley Hawks, we played in the NPBL, National Professional Basketball League. And I had a chance to coach some of the baddest guys in semi-pro basketball back in 2007.
Wow. You know, talk about coaching, you know, the semi-pro leagues. You know, it's nothing like the NBA, but it ain't no different from the street ball tournament. You know, talk about that for those that don't know about that semi-pro life.
The semi-pro life, you know, for me, I was just getting started, and I was, you know, recruiting all these guys. So I had one of the biggest guys that we drafted that year, you know, may rest in peace, Tyrell Coleman from Newburgh, New York, who actually happened to be, you know, a legend at Valhalla, but he also was a McDonald's All-American. So, you know, coaching, you know, that type of talent, you know, 6'8", 6'9", those guys are playing for a check. You know, those guys want to get after it. And we had other guys on that team that, you know, just wanted to play because they didn't get a chance to play college ball. So that whole experience watching, you know, guys want to make it and treat it like the NBA, I think that was a cool experience because it was, you know, 7 a.m. shoot around, you know, 10 o'clock practice, you know, 1 o'clock shoot around, skill development, film. You know, we treated it like the real thing.
I hear that. So talk about, you know, the three years that you guys won the Metro AAU Regional Championships with the Zion Lions.
Oh man, it was a good experience, man. You know, those guys that I had at the time, you know, Antonio Harper, you know, Austin Billick, Brandon Clark. I had a really, really good team, and those guys went on to their high schools and became stars when it was their turn. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to coach those guys. I think in 2007, those guys just started getting up to like 9th and 10th grade. And I decided to go back to Virginia State University back in 2007. That's when I ended up going back. But that experience with those guys taught me about having love and passion for the game. You know, watching those kids, you know, cling on to my leadership, you know, wanting to travel, you know, through the boroughs. You know, we playing in Queens, we playing in Brooklyn. You know, I wanted those kids to be tough. And those kids, you know, they took on the challenge. And I wanted them to get that New York City feel. That's why, you know, my father allowed my team to travel all through the state, you know, New Jersey, Connecticut. You know, we had a great time together.
Well, shout outs to the Ulster Community College graduating class of 2006 and the Virginia State graduating class of 2009.
Yeah, man.
Talk
Yeah.
about the HBCU experience.
Oh, it was beautiful. I had a chance to join an organization called Future African American Millionaires Incorporated, founded by some solid brothers coming from New York City. It's a business organization called FAM, teaching the principles of business. You know, when I went back to school, I wanted to learn more about, you know, business, but the Black experience was everything, man. Going back, because I always prayed to God, like, give me a second opportunity to close a book. that are open. And I was going to Virginia State back in 2001. So going back, I wasn't your traditional high school student, just starting school. So, had a chance to meet, one of my mentors, Dr. Leon Bay, who mentored me through the program. I became a physical education and health major where, underneath, sports marketing, sports medicine, had a really, really good chance, learning under him, where I met, Craig Littlepage from the University of Virginia, became a mentor. But I took that experience the second time around serious. Was going to class every day with shirt and ties. I had my duffel bag with my gym clothes because I was training like mentally, physically, spiritually, hit the ground running. Met one of my best friends today, David Denton, from the Bronx, New York, and one of my other favorite friends, David Forbin from Brooklyn. Those are my dudes. We went through the college experience the second time around where, it helped me become who I am, meeting guys just like myself, eager to learn and, learn business. And it was a good experience.
Well said. So before we get to you coaching at Ulster, talk about the 18-1 season with your alma mater when you coached the JV.
Oh, so, that was the same time I was coaching with the Newburgh Zion Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was still going back and forth to Virginia State, trying to, service the land coming back to Virginia State. But we went 18-1. We had a really, really good team. We had Raymar Davis, who's a big, name in Newburgh for far as playing. We had a young man, Bam Johnson from Newburgh. Had a really, really good team. The game I didn't show up because I went down to Virginia State. These guys lose to Cornwall, New York. We technically should have been undefeated, but Rich Anderson, who I really think that should have deserved the job back in Newburgh, he didn't get the varsity job, but I took that job with him to learn from him because he was one of my social studies teachers in middle school, junior high school. But great experience, very competitive team. 18-1, you look back at those times like, man, those kids played their heart out for you.
Oh, man, that's what's up. So let's get into you coaching at Ulster, which is where I met you at. So
Right.
How did the Ulster situation come about?
So, being an alum of Ulster, even after I graduated and when I was a student, I always will recruit players to go there for an opportunity. So my name was always relevant on the campus, from the trio program, student support services. Like when I got on Ulster's campus, I became the plug to know who's who on campus. But always sent good students from Dutchess, Ulster, Orange County to Ulster. So when my head coach, Corey Chambers, got let go, I had a chance to, interview for the job and apply for the job. And, I thank God every day for the athletic director, Deb Sofaro. She gave me my first opportunity to coach at the college level. Mind you, it's real rare to see, someone become a head coach with no coaching experience at the college level. So for me to become a head coach at the age of 24, I was very, very fortunate to take a job that nobody really wanted once my head coach got let go. It was like, Ulster. But I always felt like Ulster was a gym. Once you know the people, the community, Stone Ridge, you got a Plattekill where New Paltz is, you have Kingston, those areas, really good, nice areas to live. And had a really good opportunity to come back. I was still a student at Virginia State when I applied for the job.
Wow.
When I met the AD, Deb Sofaro, it was understood that I had to graduate to get the job. So I had a lot of pressure on me. I was taking like 22 credits, getting ready to graduate. Yeah, I was taking 22 credits to getting ready to graduate. And I started the job June 1st, 2009.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's crazy. Like the 22 credits. That's like you don't even get financial aid after 18.
right. No, I mean I took out student loans. I was working at the group home. I was working at the laser tag. My cousin back home in New York had a clothing store, so I would sell clothes. I was just trying to figure it out, you know what I mean? Like just
Mhm.
having an extra hustle, being from New York. I just took that same attitude and same approach when I went back the second time to Virginia State. Like this is all I have.
Right.
So just being able to, again, become a head coach at the age of 24, I mean, man, that was a blessing from God, you know. And one thing I will say, for those that don't know about Ulster, um, every day I walk in the place, in the Senate Gymnasium, and it was a name that I always see in the wall, Jackie Knowles. And I would just like, I go out to the local eateries, and I'm like, man, who is this guy, Jackie Knowles? And people in the community still know who he is for all of the fond moments that he left back. But when I was a player, you guys will never be as good as the 1972 crew and Jackie Knowles. And I was like, man, who is this guy? His plaque was the only plaque in the wall. So,
Wow.
I'm not knowing who he is. And he calls, at the time up to the school saying, I speak to Coach Rayford. Mind you, I'm busy out my mind. And man, Ulster brought Jackie Knowles and Harold Rayford together back in 2009. And that's why, you see me in New York City, very comfortable because I'm walking around with New York City's godfather. It's a lot of history to that man. He left Ulster, went to Niagara University with, broke the assist record. It was 14. He broke it with 16. Then going, shout out to Jackie Knowles.
Yes.
Shout out to
Great
my
man.
guy.
Really
No,
good
no question.
man. I remember last week we were all in Georgia and we were talking around while you guys were playing. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
That's my guy.
right,
So,
right.
talk about, the 3 years that you spent with Ulster.
Oh man, beautiful experience, man. Finished right at like 500 my 3 years there. I had some really, really dynamite players. My first year, I had the chance to coach Darryl Charles out of Poughkeepsie, New York. Darryl was a big time 6'7", do it all forward. I had Moet Towns from Brooklyn. Moet was a big time Brooklyn Knight who could play. Uh, God bless his soul. Sid Jones came to Ulster Community College. Sid Jones being one of the biggest names in Brooklyn when it comes to basketball. He gave the blessing to send his Brooklyn crew to Ulster my first year coaching as a head coach. And, meeting, basketball, legend like Sid Jones, I'm like, man, he give me Moet Towns. Like Moet was a really, really big time player. Go along with Darryl Charles and, a few others. So my first year was really good. We, competitive. Knocked off Hostos Community College. Hostos, had Roy Beekman. Roy Beekman was a great coach, won a national title. I don't know if he won the national title, but he won Region 15 at the time. And I'm pretty sure he won that national title before I got to Ulster Community College. But, going on to the second year, this is when I really, really, hit home. I met, my close brother, Skeeter Henry, who's currently working with the Gaucho program. Skeeter, blessed me with, 3 dynamite players. Jonathan Williams, who played in the backcourt with Kimball Walker at Rice. Amani Ennis, who played at St. Ray's. You look at Alan Forbes, who played at Wings. And at this time, they like, man, how's Ulster getting this? Skeeter being, very close. Skeeter was sending me, some big time players that shouldn't have been at Ulster Community
Wow.
College. Of course, going on to the third year, I had a chance to, coach Chris Austin, who was on the first team All-State Chris Austin was a big time player, one of my favorite players to coach. He was first team All-State in New York with Cle Anthony early that year. I had Kyle Benjamin, who's currently playing pro. I had Remy McNaught from Brooklyn. None of this happens, without the blessing of Jackie Knowles being a part of it, man. I just, again, shout out to Jackie, the godfather of New York City basketball. But none of this happens. I had Babacar Ba from All Hallows. I had Andre Diggs from the Bronx. Big time players, man. And, was able to build my resume at Ulster at a young age. I was the youngest Black coach in America at the time, youngest minority coach at the time, at 24, 25 years of age. Held that for like 3 years. So, learning those, having that experience, man, was big time at Ulster.
Wow, that's big right there.
Yeah.
So another big opportunity came up following that magical year. Norfolk State University.
Yes. Shout out to the greatest coach of all time in my eyes, who really knows the game, Anthony Evans. Anthony Evans done, big time work for that campus, that university. Prior to me arriving, to that, institution, I met Anthony Evans, who became my brother. He taught me a lot about the game that I didn't know, from a champion background. Because if you look at his background, where he's coming from, Anthony Evans, big time winner every level he's been at. From SUNY Ulster, when he was the coach of the year, in Region 15, going on to Delhi Tech. But he was the big reason why I went to Ulster. Because I'm thinking, you know what, if they're winning, I can come from this Division II program and right away, play for somebody that's winning. So I went to Ulster expecting Anthony Evans to be there, but he moved on. So, again, shout out to my brother Anthony Evans, who's currently at Fordham University. Yeah, man, magical experience. Before I even get there, he marches on to the NCAA after winning, the MEAC championship in Missouri, who's predicted to be a number 1 seed too that year. They happened to get the number 15 seed, and Missouri got the number 2 seed, and the biggest upset in college history is having Norfolk State beat Missouri that year, the year before I came on. So through the years, just staying in contact with Coach Evans. He asked me, did I, at this time, my contract was not going to be renewed at Ulster Community College. And I got a phone call saying, you want me to come to Norfolk State after I just watched that on television? And, the rest was history. You know what I mean? Like, I get down to Norfolk and, we go 16-0 in the MEAC. Big time. I mean, never experienced anything like it when going undefeated in conference. You beating Howard, Hampton, North Carolina A&T. That year we didn't get a chance to play Central, but they were on their way to being undefeated before they, lost to A&T. But big time experience. A lot of days, up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, learning film, breaking down film, developing scouting reports, more in detail than what I did at Ulster Community College. Mm-hmm. And that's back in 2012, 2013, that was like a big part of my growth and development as a coach, learning from one of the best.
Wow. And then you guys went 16-0 in conference.
Yep.
Won the MEAC regular season championship, and then went to the NIT.
Went on to the NIT. And again, not having no experience at the Division I level, again, having the opportunity at that time, with Rob Johnson, who's currently at the Skill Factory, and I know we'll get into that in a minute. Mm-hmm. I went down to Norfolk State, and him and I became very close even before me going down to Norfolk State, becoming an assistant, where I would see him in the Bronx, New York, training we working out. But I had a chance, Rob's senior year, because Rob put on a clinic the year before where I thought he should have been, the MEAC MVP. If you look at the body of work that he's done during that tournament last year, when Norfolk State ended up beating Bethune-Cookman. Rob Johnson had a really, really good performance that whole tournament. But I had a chance to, work with Rob and another young man, Chris Brown. We had a 7-footer that I had to coach against in Region 15 when I was at Ulster. He was at Westchester, Paulie Vinogradovich. And Paulie was, at Westchester with Ty Mustad. But I had a chance to coach those guys at Norfolk State, man, and great experience, having Pendarvis Williams, Jamel Fuentes from the Bronx. It was great, man. It was great.
Yeah, shout outs to Brooklyn's own Jamel Fuentes.
No doubt.
Good, man.
No doubt.
Wow, so y'all beat my alma mater, St. Francis, Brooklyn.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
You guys had a heavy schedule. Y'all had NC State, Illinois. You guys only lost to by 10, which is not bad.
Correct. Correct. And mind you, the year before we lost a lot of seniors. Ronnie McCauley was on that team the year before. A couple other guys that's not coming to mind, but they, Norfolk State had a major crew the year before I got there, which, upset in Missouri was big. So coming back the second year when I get on staff, they didn't think that we were even going to compete. So going 16-0, working with Rob Jones and, Larry Vickers, who's down at Norfolk State currently on the women's side. I learned a lot from those guys.
That's awesome, man. Shout outs to Anthony Evans, man. That's a really big opportunity.
He's the guy, man. He's the guy, man. Anthony Evans is the guy. Man, he knows the game inside and out, man. I don't question his basketball knowledge at all. But shout out to Anthony Evans again, man.
So what made you decide to leave Norfolk State to go to BREC Academy?
So I had an opportunity. I went down to FIU with Coach Evans for about 6 months to get it established. I realized at that time I had a lot to learn. So back in 2013, that's when I went back to Virginia to work on my special ed degree. So I end up back in 2013. I'm big on education, and what I realized, obtaining my special ed degree was that if you communicate with students with disabilities, you should be able to communicate with anyone and teach them. So, going to Virginia Union, along with working at BREC Academy, I had a chance to learn how to teach more in depth, learn how to build a school, had a chance to work right underneath the owner of the school at times, the principal of the school, learning how to, develop IEPs. And, that was a big, I really wanted to learn more about students with special needs because, a lot of times, even at the basketball level, we work with students with special needs. So I feel like if I can teach students with special needs, man, that'll help me catapult my career.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of these kids, when they hear the words IEP or special ed, people automatically assume that there's something wrong with them.
No.
There's nothing wrong with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, for those kids, they might have some type of deficiencies. Like, they may be dyslexic or they have some disabilities, but at the same time,
I mean, a lot of it is the processing skills. A lot of times, students process things certain ways. And that's my job as a coach, even as a teacher, to figure it out how to teach my lesson. And I just really took it personal, man. When I went to that program, I'm like, man, I got to really learn how to tap into our kids because it's not that they have a disability is people are taught different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's just how I looked at things. Not that you have a disability, just the processing skills, you know, I just looked at it that way.
And the beautiful thing is in New York State, well, when the kids were able to take the regions, having that IEP was a plus because all you needed to pass the New York State regions was a 55 if you had an
Right.
IEP. And I was a part of the last graduating class where all you needed was a 55 to graduate high school.
Wow. I got you.
Class of 2010. So after that, every year, every kid that didn't have an IEP had to graduate with all 65s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lucky that I
Yep.
was a part of the last class that had the lower
Right.
requirements.
Right. Right. I remember, you know, the Regents, you know, diploma, the local diploma, really no difference, you know, really no difference. But the testing was a whole lot more, you know, tougher trying to
Yeah.
obtain a Regents diploma.
And it's very difficult even now. A lot of kids are struggling just to pass that
Wow.
exam. But I mean, I'm glad that they're not having that this year with the pandemic and everything, because a lot of these kids are just with everything that they've gone through, you know, they're not ready to sit in a classroom for 2 straight hours just to fulfill that test. And
Right.
it's like just for them to hear that they didn't pass that test is heartbreaking for a lot of these kids. Cause it's like,
Right.
okay, I got another semester to finish this, you know, because a lot of
Right.
these kids, they're not really good with, you know, test taking anxiety. And a lot
Right.
of people don't even address that in these
Correct.
schools. So
Correct. Shout out to all the special ed, you know, instructors, teachers, you know, everybody supporting students with special needs, man. I have a heart, you know, for students. I have a heart for learning. And, you know, it was a big part of, you know, me stepping away from Division I basketball is being able to teach.
yeah, man. Plus the Division I basketball game, we
And it
all
was tough walking away, man. I'll be honest with you. It was tough walking away. You know, you talking about, you know, flights, you talking about meals, you talking about, you know, all the, you know, different amenities. But what I loved the most was the game of basketball, you know,
mhm.
going to North Carolina State and, you know, going to Ball State. I spent my New Year's at Ball State University and I'm like, man, I'm in this thing. I really like, I'm in this. And, you know, to walk away, it was a big part of is working with students, you know, special needs, man, and working with our youth and teaching them the right way.
Well, what I will say is there are the perks, but then there's the downsides to coaching on the Division I level, you know, because you know, no year, every year is not guaranteed. If you're not winning, you get the pink slip. That's one part. Two, you
Right,
know what I'm saying? There's always that pressure. And
right,
you know, a lot of scandals that went down in recent years, you know,
right.
every coach has that edge on them. Every coach has that pressure to, you know, perform. And if not, get that pink slip.
See what I view, you know, Dave, there's, you know, is those coaches that develop talent, but then there's coaches that want ready-made talent. But
Mhm.
even if you
Yeah,
get both, you still got to be able to develop. You still
exactly.
got to be able to teach them. You know what I mean? So, you know, a lot of coaches got the game mixed up because it's all about what you can teach them on the court, off the court,
Mhm.
and if everything plays a part in your success in building a program. You know, I just look at, you know, certain coaches like, you know, Brad Stevens. He was able to build a culture, you
Right.
know, when he was at Butler, and then now he's built a culture with the Boston Celtics. And you know, I look at, you know, I watch a lot of film. So when I look at these guys, I'm like, you got to be able to do it both, on and off the floor, where
Right.
these guys are respecting your pedigree as a coach.
Right. And some people just can't do that. They just can't. No
Right.
matter how I feel like where these coaches go wrong is they expect the kids to just respect them off of their name and reputation alone. And it doesn't work that
Man,
way.
it doesn't work that way at all, man. You know, I get a new batch of kids, you know, every year, and they're like, okay, I'm just as good as who you had before. To
Hmm.
do to teach me. So, you know, I
Exactly.
get it. Yeah.
It's
So,
crazy.
you know, was at BREC Academy where, you know, I got those teachings and learn how to, you know, build a school. Uh, and I took my talents down to North Carolina, opened up Concord Prep. And at
Wow.
that time, I was working with George, who's from Newburgh, but moved down to the Charlotte, and we started up with the combine preps, the Bull City preps. I watched all of these schools in the years. I'm like, man, Moravian Prep. We started right when they started, and to see everybody's program grow for me is like amazing, because I see these guys putting in a lot of hard work. They're taking time away from their families to develop their schools and their programs. To see it, a combine academy nationally ranked, I'm like, man, what if I would have stayed in Charlotte? Well, we still have been, the juggernaut that we were when I first started. We had Donovan Fields from Newburgh. I always go back home to get, my kids and my father's kids and the kids from New York State, New York City, an opportunity. So I went back home and I got Section 9 Player of the Year, Donovan Fields. Donovan Fields comes to Concord Prep after being on the first team with Isaiah Whitehead. Didn't have any Division I offers. I had Jaquan Jones from Newburgh, and then I had Sean Jones from St. Raymond's, Chief Omoa from Washington, D.C. I had Eric McCullum from Newburgh, who's 6'8". Man, we came in with a squad, and we brought it, man. So we put Concord Prep on the map, made it to the Final Four, the USA Nationals for post-grad. Great experience, man, getting introduced to the prep level, because it gave me an opportunity to teach what I've been taught by Coach Evans, Jackie Knowles, shout out to my other mentor who works with my dad, Mike Fields. Mike Fields being, a real big part of my early success when I was coaching, with my father in my father's program. But had a chance to, put that program on the map with George. And we had a real good skill development coach who's with Moravian Prep now, Coach Rick Belt. And Coach Belt, he's trained a lot of good guys, man, through the years. And to have him on my staff, that was, real, pivotal, especially for our success at Concord Prep.
Indeed, man. And I will say that Charlotte area, and I'm Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, that state alone is responsible for a lot of talent out there. I remember, I want to say about a month ago, when I went to Rock Hill, that sports and event center that's basically like the basketball bubble out there
No
in
question.
Rock Hill, South Carolina. Like, so many kids with so much talent. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait to go back down there again.
Hey, man, I my hat is off to you for what you're doing, man. Like, being able to interview coaches, players, basketball people, coaches and people who just connected to the game, man. I appreciate it, because I'm looking at you like how I see Brett Swanee, down in the North Carolina region, looking out for players that need an opportunity, man. All these kids need help getting exposure. Coaches need help, making connections, because ultimately, these kids are putting in countless hours in the gym, training on and off the floor. We need more guys like you, man. And so, man, I appreciate you doing what you're doing.
Indeed. So, moving forward, 2015, you created the program that you're now coaching and running, Tennessee Prep. What made you decide to move from the Charlotte area to Memphis, Tennessee?
No, it was tough moving from Charlotte back in 2015. Well, 2014, I met my wife, who at the time was my girlfriend, down in Dallas, Texas. I moved, my wife from Dallas to Charlotte, where soon after, we become engaged. Then we're expecting my daughter, Olivia. So it was kind of tough leaving Charlotte, because Charlotte's a really, really nice area, man. Beautiful people, beautiful food, real nice, elegant, classy. Charlotte is it. I really like Charlotte. But I met a gentleman out here in Memphis years ago. My father was responsible for Ryan Rones, who was a big time player in New York who came down to the South, and Ryan connected me with this gentleman from Memphis, where, you know, it was about, if you built the school in Concord, North Carolina, we need what you have in Memphis. You know, we don't have a prep school in Memphis. And I'm like, man, Memphis is it. Because as far as back as I remember, you know, you got all these pros in the NBA, you know, coming from Memphis. And I'm like, man, let me figure some things out. So countless hours with my fiance, my wife, Kristen, you know, trying to figure out a name for the school, trying to figure out where we want to locate the school in Tennessee. And, you know, God put it on my heart, man, to create Tennessee Preparatory Academy, you know, becoming, you know, not only just, you know, the CEO, but a founder of a school, you know, educator of the school. You know, I thought it was, you know, cool. You know, my wife worked corporate America for American Express. So just having that corporate feel with, you know, the land of Tennessee. So, you know, countless hours coming up with the whole landscape, man. And I came out to Memphis and I met with the officials at Lemoyne Owen College, where we opened up, you know, we broke ground on Lemoyne's campus with Tennessee Prep. I met with the coaching staff. I met with, you know, city officials, you know, the mayor. I'm at the table at the time. I'm like, they asked me, how can I get this prep school off the ground? And, it was, you know, a memory that I always remember being at the table, you know, because at the time they wanted, you know, the community wanted Amari Stoudemire to come in and open up the prep school. So, you know, I had the understanding and wherewithal to, you know, put all the pieces together to now create Tennessee Prep. And my first biggest move was picking up Rob Johnson.
Wow.
That was my biggest move, was picking up someone I knew loved the game just like myself, someone that was energetic, that could match my energy, that can teach. And, you know, I watched Rob grow up right in front of my face, going from Marist to Norfolk State. So that was my biggest, you know, acquisition, was bringing on Rob Johnson.
Amazing.
As we got started.
So talk about, you know, the basketball culture in Memphis.
Oh man, it's dope, man. It reminds me of New York City back in like the 90s. Like, it's a basketball craze city. You know, Penny Hardaway being iconic, and, you know, the guy in Memphis. But you got, you know, Thaddeus Young being from Memphis. You got a lot of good programs that develop young men to perform on a high level. Not, you know, the culture here is amazing, man. I enjoy it, you know, talking to coaches, and, you know, they're asking me questions. We talk. I talk to several coaches every day about the game of basketball here in the city, and to be respected here is big for me.
Yeah. One day,
Coming from Newburgh at that, you know, coming from New York, you know, coming to a major city that's recognized for basketball, man, I love it here.
Yeah. Now next year, I'm hoping, if all goes well, I might just come out for a weekend to Memphis. That's my plan. That's my goal.
Okay.
That's,
Come
you
on,
know,
man. You know, you're more than welcome, Dave. You know, you're part of the family, man. I remember watching you when you were in high school, when I, you know, got started coaching, you know, right there in the Bronx, New York. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we had Kelvin, you know, we had Kelvin Dixon. We had a lot of good dudes at that time playing when you were coming up. It was a lot of good players, man. So, but again, watching you come up, man, it was, you know, you're more than welcome to come down to Memphis.
But I'm definitely coming through.
Yeah.
So, you know, talk about, you know, Tennessee Prep, the school and the program.
So, see, a lot of folks, when they see Tennessee Preparatory Academy, they don't know what we are. They think that we are a basketball academy. Let me put the pause button on that. No, we're an actual school. We teach grades 9 through 12, and we happen to have post-grad. Now, I pour my blood, sweat, and tears to develop my curriculum, you know, going to webinars, going to, you know, to the White House, sitting down with folks that helped me develop the school. You know what I mean? Like, it's a school, so we're a brick and mortar school. when I first got started, we did partner with Hollis F. Price until I got, the nuts and bolts of the academic down. But Tennessee Prep is a school. Right now, we do not offer post-grad. We only working with 9 through 12. And, we take a lot of pride in our education, man. We have Moses Najak, who's at Brown University. When Moses was here, Moses scored a 34 on the ACT.
Wow.
So, yeah, like, we don't,
High.
yeah, pretty high. And, Moses, being very dedicated. We produced the gentleman, Eric Rustin, that's at UT Martin, a 7-footer. This is just most recent, but, we take a lot of pride in the education side, because if these guys are not educated and have an understanding of how to be, students in college, I'm not doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
I take that job on the education real serious. And, Tennessee Prep is a Christian school. We go by the Christian laws and the Holy Bible, but we don't discriminate. We have Muslims students, we have, students of the other denomination. But our basketball program is what brings the students to the school.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Duke University, students want to be a part of that culture. That's what was my vision for Tennessee Prep, is let's get the best athletes in the building so we can, have this like Duke, have it like the Kentuckys. That was my vision going in. And we've produced a lot of good basketball players, my time here, 2015.
That's dope, man. And I see a picture of you and Penny on the website.
Yeah. Great relationship. I communicate with Penny often, talking about the game. We both love film. We talk about players and, execution. I sent him some stuff that, I took from other pro coaches, and I took from Anthony Evans, and how I, dissected it. And, we go back and forth with basketball. I'm a supporter of Penny Hardaway, man. As you can see, my point guard is Damian Ball is playing for him now.
Yeah,
Damian was with me for 2 years, where now he's with Penny, man. And I, again, big time supporter of Penny Hardaway and love what he's doing with the program.
indeed. That's to be commended. You know what I'm saying? The fact that he's doing it all in the city where he was born and raised,
Correct.
played college basketball, became an All-American. You know what I'm saying? If only the Grizzlies were around when he was playing in the NBA.
Yeah, right.
Well, at least in the early years, that would have been crazy. But now he's back at the FedEx Forum. Eventually, they need to have y'all play a game in there too.
Eventually. Rome wasn't built overnight. You hear coaches say that all the time, but I'm continuing to build a resume to make that argument.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be, say, here, Tennessee Prep, or come on over. You still got to put in work. There's been coaches that have been coaching the game for a very long time, never had an opportunity or scratched the surface to have an opportunity. So for me, man, I'm just fortunate to be in a position like a power here at Tennessee Prep.
Indeed. So let's talk about some of your standouts at Tennessee Prep that I got to see last week.
Well, my standouts are, the history first. I got to talk on Rob Johnson. Rob came here. We won a national title together back in 2015, 2016. We won the NACAA national title. We had, I think in that year, we had 9 Division I players. Taj Edie, who's currently at USC, Southern Cal Trojans. If not the first leading scorer, second leading scorer. We have Romani Henson, who finished up at Albany, has the rebounding record with 22 rebounds at Albany. We had Jordan Giles, who went to UMKC, Alex Torres from the Bronx, New York, Shannon Goldman, who's at Tennessee Tech. We've had a lot of players come through, early parts, when Rob was here. And I just commend Rob for growing as a person, skill development. He's not just skill development, he's a specialist of what he does. You know, it's nobody out here like Rob Johnston. In that year, we also had Terry Hicks, one of my guys, and we had Charles Pack, who's another one of my guys. And those guys, like, they work their behinds off for me, man. Skill work, Civil Rights Museum, you know, bringing the guys down there, you know, just being, you know, a beacon of light to show these guys how to be young men and carry themselves. So, you know, shout out to Rob, Terry, and Charles. Those guys did a great job helping me with the foundation of Tennessee Prep. They did a really, really good job, man. And, you know, bringing players in, that, you know, that's what they did. And they trained them up with me. So, you know.
So y'all got a special kid right now that's from Rochester, New York, Tyrell Blocker.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit about him.
So this is Cottrell's second year in the program. I'm very tough on Cottrell because I want him to be successful. Cottrell is a bona fide, you know, you hear all the time coaches say bona fide scorer. No, Cottrell is a bona fide scorer. Just looking back from, you know, last year as his junior year, he had 40 against OSL at the Gaucho Gym. You know, he was the MVP of the game. He had another 36-point game against the gentleman who committed to Memphis. Just committed to Memphis. Jordan Nesbitt, you know, hit the game-winning shot in his face. Like, it, you know, Cottrell is a player. He was a player last year. And now coming into his senior year, you know, I'm on Cottrell because I know anywhere he goes, the coach got a steal in the young man. He knows how to score with the ball, without the ball, make the right plays. And it's funny you even mentioned that because Cottrell right now is the #1 combo guard in the state of Tennessee as of today's ranking. And this is a kid that had no rank. Nobody knew who he was. You know, of course, in Rochester, he's a big name in Rochester.
Yeah.
But when you start crossing those state borders, you know, talking about leaving from New York to come way down to Memphis or Tennessee, you know, my hat is off to him for even making that jump, leaving Rochester to come to a big city like Memphis. And now to be, you know, one of my lead guys on my team, you know, is a testament to the work he's put in before he even got to Tennessee Prep.
Yeah. And then you guys have some other talented players. You know, you could give him a shout out.
Yeah, so, you know, my captain, you know, I love my point guard, Caleb Horton from Chicago, Illinois. Caleb played for Mac Urban Fire on the EYBL circuit. Tough, heady guard. Just had a 4.0 in the classroom this semester.
Wow.
Like the dude is serious, man. Like, if any coach is looking for, you know, an academic kid, but also a point guard that knows how to make the right play. And one thing I don't never do, Dave, I don't oversell players, man. If he can play, he can play. You know, that's been my reputation here at Tennessee Prep. I got another big fella who I'm working with, James Flippin from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He transferred in from my other school, Minnesota Prep, back in October. So, you know, I know we haven't talked about Minnesota Prep, but Big James, you know, came to me, and, you know, I got other guys from London, Switzerland, who are, you know, on the roster now. So we got a well-versed roster. Always looking to always come back home to New York and grab some guys. But I know due to COVID, you know, this wasn't my year to get back home to New York, man.
Yeah. And then it's like now Cuomo's allowing the season, like he's allowing indoor sports or whatever to start.
Right.
Like as of February 1st. But, you know, and Jersey's just started up. Massachusetts already started up. Connecticut starts up the end of this month. You know, it's a shame that, you know, a lot of the kids in the Northeast unfortunately got shafted because of, not so much because of COVID, but I think because of the governments. I mean, yes, the governments, their motive is to keep, you know, the general public safe from this horrible disease. But, you know, I feel like places like states like North Carolina, Texas, Georgia, Florida, you know, the South, everything is working so well. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and a lot of that is, you know, shout out to, you know, tournament directors, guys who putting on, you know, these events. I think the events down in the South have been ran very, very well. Up north, I haven't been home since, July, checking back with mom and dad back in Newburgh. But really haven't had a chance to see, because everything's been shut down. Everything's been shut down.
That's
and,
true.
I think, the governor did a great job by shutting New York down. My father had COVID. My sister had COVID. My mom just recovered from COVID. So, New York got hit pretty hard. I lost some friends to COVID, some young friends.
Sorry.
And I just think, New York was going to get hit hard with COVID. So, I think the governor did a good job shutting it down. But now picking up the pieces is going to be important by the leaders that, run these tournaments in these facilities.
Yeah.
And I think, the Gauchos program with Book Richardson, I think he's going to do a really, really good job, with different mandates and running things the right way.
Yeah.
I think Book is going to do a great job.
Well, Book, I should say, he was also another guest on this.
I seen. I had to do my research before I got here, man.
Yeah. So he did a wonderful job with round ball this past
right, I seen that.
He did a really good job. They couldn't have too many people in the gym because of the guidelines, but
right.
he did the best he could, and there was still some good comp. Jimmy Salmon, when he ran his players tournament down in Montclair, New Jersey, outdoors, this fall, he did a wonderful job.
That's good.
Kahari Buford, he was a standout in Connecticut, played ball at UT Martin. Now he's starting up his skills academy in Connecticut.
Well, it's funny you even say Kahari. I recruited him, man.
Really?
I recruited. I tried to get him at Norfolk State. Then when I went down to FIU, I recruited him. I brought on Jason Boswell to FIU.
Wow.
I just think back when you said Kahari, I just remember, my recruiting list, and I'm like, I gotta get him, gotta get this guy. So, shout out to him for getting started, man.
It's never too late to connect.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
Also, Isaiah Whitehead, he's had this skills academy taking place for a couple, maybe I would say a month now. So he's had a little haven for some of the city's best players to just not just to ball out against each other, but also like get skill development. So he's doing a good job with that. Correct. So hopefully, the kids get at least 10 games to do what they do, and then it's off to AAU. Get at least give them the 10 games. That's all I'm saying. Or create like some type of bubble atmosphere to where they can really play. Right. I say that,
Right. I love what they're doing. I definitely got to speak on this, Dave. The grind session.
Yes, let's talk about the grind session.
Yeah. The greatest high school platform I've ever seen or been a part of. I've coached against a lot of great talent from Thon Maker, Josh Jackson, DeAndre Ayton, Jamal Murray. Like, I coached against these guys, man. And to see these dudes in the NBA rocking it, doing it, and, Gary Trent Jr., like, I see Gary Trent Jr. playing against the Lakers. I'm like, man, I just coached against this kid. You know what I mean? So, the platform is amazing. Shout out to Dan and Scott, who put on the grind session, and the rest of the staff, Jesse, Skylar, Mikey. I think the staff, the video team, everybody's doing a great job, man. And it's been, a big family, and bringing in, teams all over the country to play against the best. It's the best platform, man.
Right. Shout outs to the grind session. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're a really solid league from what we saw last year, when they had Putnam Science and OSL playing in Gauchos before that unfortunate incident.
Right.
But I hope they do come back to New York.
Right.
Next year. I'm hoping, because we want to see more of those teams.
Right.
I know you guys will come back to New York, but I want to see more of the other teams because we've seen their highlights. I'm like, there's a lot.
It's really like that, man. You see those highlights, like, it's really, really like that. And it's one, like, these guys are being coached too. So these kids on the grind session are coming from coaches that know the game of basketball. So it's just one thing seeing a highlight play, but look at how these guys are getting their stuff off is amazing. Like the defense, the perimeter defense, or how they coming off screens. I think the coaches on the grind session are doing a magnificent job teaching the game, man. Because every night is like you're really coaching against pro level talent and coaches. You got your scouting reports have to be detailed for anybody to get a win.
Mm. So outside of the grind session, like talk about how does it go to put your schedule up? To put
A lot of it
let me rephrase that. Put the schedule together, I should say.
So putting the schedule together, I always, before I put it together, I look at the regions where I want my kids to be recruited. Always got to get back to the Big Apple every year. Unfortunately this year we weren't due to COVID, but just looking at different regions and different hotspots to go. So I put the schedule based upon what the grind session gives us, but I also look at events that I know, like we go down to Dallas every year. We're in Florida about 2 or 3 times a year. We're in Atlanta about 2 or 3 times a year. We're playing about 45 to 50 games on a season.
Wow, that's more than high school teams play.
Right. So my thing is, if they're getting a dosage of it now, we're eventually going to have a pro. And that's just my goal for my school is to eventually have, a young man make it to the league. And I know we're close. I know we're very close to making that happen. But, just looking at the schedule, I look at those regions where I can, get multiple scouts, multiple, reporters to come out and read, do their research, do write-ups, because that stuff is important, man. Getting footage and getting, somebody else's point of view from what they see on your team is important.
So how's like the media presence out in Memphis? How does the grassroots community and all the media treat you guys out there?
Well, I created my own lane with Tennessee Prep. Shout out to the EYBL, the Under Armour, the Adidas circuits. But I just created this own lane because of my prior experience before I came to Memphis coaching. So, when I go to Final Fours, I do clinics where, I teach the game of basketball. I've interact with other coaches, rising coaches. I'm a member of Rising Coaches. And I'll be a guest on there Wednesday night, Wednesday morning, with Rising Coaches. But, my network of coaches before I got to Memphis was already, heavy, going to, many, many years going to the Final Fours, just doing events and networking. But I created my own and, I get along with everybody here in Memphis, but they're like, well, why is Coach Rayford doing this and we're doing that? Like, I'm really just doing mine for my kids, man. If you want to come in and sponsor, some sneakers or, donate some hoodies or whatever the case may be, I welcome it to happening. But, pretty much get along with everybody. Courtney Smith is a good dude in Memphis to know. He's over Prep Hoops, Tennessee, on this side. Andrew Force is another guy to know. But I pretty much met a lot of good guys here that, respect Tennessee Prep for the body of work that we've completed.
Indeed. So this is one of the questions that I love to ask before I lead up to the final question. If you could go back to 2009, what would you tell a young Harold Rayford at 24 years old as he's starting up at his alma mater, Ulster County Community College?
I should have listened a little bit more. When you're young in the game, you feel like you accomplished stuff. So, I had a slight ego, part of my New York savvy. I have always had my chest poking out like I accomplished stuff, but I really didn't. When I look back, I'm like, man, look at the body of work and all even when I'm talking to you, I'm looking like, man, look at all the guys I shouted out. But I should have listened a little bit more to my mentors that been around the game. I should have took a little bit more notes prior to, but outside of that, man, I wouldn't change anything. I really love my experiences. I just wish I would have, listened a little bit more. That's just the biggest thing, just listen.
Experience is always the greatest teacher.
No question, man. No question.
Final question. What's next in the future for Harold Rayford Jr. and the Tennessee Prep Academy diplomats?
Well, that's a really good question, man. I've had opportunity most recently to coach over in Poland. I was offered, a contract to coach professionally over in Poland because of what I've done here at Tennessee Prep. Honestly, I just want to be the best husband, best father to Olivia, Harold, the best son to my mother and father, big brother to my sisters, and just be the best educator, man, and wherever God leads me. I've been offered jobs and positions, the last 5 or 6 years, and it's like, it just timing is everything. And, where I am right now, early childhood development for my babies are important. I don't want to be like, many coaches, hopping up from one city, going to take this job. And now, my child is like a basketball military child.
Yeah.
I'm big on, early childhood development, but, wherever God leads me, man, I'm sticking to his plan and his will. That's pretty much it. If it's me going to coach pro, if it's God push me in the direction, that's where I go. But right now, Tennessee Prep, that's what I'm responsible for now. So we got some exciting news that's getting ready to happen for Tennessee Prep in the next couple of days. In reference to our campus, growing bigger, partnership growing bigger.
Well, you can talk about it here, so because it may not come out for a couple of days.
No, I mean, I got to keep it close to the vest because it's gonna hit mainstream here soon. The partnerships and the things that we're expanding. So that's coming out in a few days, Dave. I don't want to give too much
it's
out.
Cool.
Man.
Don't worry about it. It's cool.
I do want to give another shout out to my other school, Minnesota Prep, Donnell Branton and Lucas Patterson. Lucas, happy birthday. Those guys are doing a great job. I know you got a chance to see those guys.
Yes, I did.
Shout out to Lakai, our first Division I prospect coming from Minnesota Prep, who's at Missouri State University. We've got a bunch of talent there now, man. DJ Jefferson, Massey. We had Adrian, Sprinkles. We have a bunch of talent up in Minnesota. But shout out to my guys up there. I just love, what God has my hands in. Definitely want to give a shout out to my guy, Pete, OSL, New York City. He's doing a hell of a job up there. I love what he's doing on the grind session, being responsible for guys like Posh Alexander. He's doing a great job, man. And I just, wish all my guys the best, man, and keep doing what they're doing.
Harold, thank you for coming on to share your story, and I wish you nothing but the best moving forward with Tennessee Prep.
No question. Hey, Dave, I definitely want to give a shout out to everyone who's recovered from COVID-19. Do not let this pandemic, slow you down. Use it as motivation. The pandemic, gave everybody opportunity to reflect. So reflect on these moments, get better, work on, your health and wellness, as coaches, me in particular, I want, folks to really, really tune into their health, man. Walk an extra couple miles, do some exercise, because it not only just helps, your body, but it also helps your mind when you get a chance to go out there and do some extra, work. So shout out to all the, COVID-19 survivors, and let's keep our country in prayers. I hope that, Joe Biden, does what he's supposed to do, and, Kamala Harris does what they're supposed to do.
Cut student loans.
But, I just wish that everybody does what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
In this 2021, man. Rest in peace to Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
I lost a brother that I never met, but
oh yeah, tomorrow's the first.
Right. So just again, thank you for this opportunity. I want to give a shout out to the Black Mamba.
Me rest in power.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like that's big time stuff is happening with basketball. Dave, I want to leave on one note though.
Mm.
You know, I experiencing the bubble with the grind session is real. It made me respect LeBron James as a leader. We know who was on his roster, as far as players from, you know, Anthony Davis to Dwight Howard, J.R. Smith, Deion Waiters. And then you look at, you know, the former MVP Kawhi Leonard, you know, and the crew that he had. But shout out to LeBron for being a great leader. He took that bubble and had that players only meeting where he had those guys tune in for 5 months of pure basketball. The bubble experience is real, man. So if people want to put an asterisk next to his championship, put it because it's tough. Not being around family, eating the foods you want to eat, you know, to really tune in, you know, to me, it's like those guys that were in the bubble were incarcerated playing the game they love, but it's tough to really focus, you know, at a high level playing against the best, you know, basketball players in the world. So, you know, what I've experienced in the grind session bubble, that you have to be focused, you have to be disciplined, going back to, my principles, just be disciplined. You know, we're getting ready to go to the grind session bubble February 11th, with the hopes of getting a world championship bid. So, you know, the bubble is real, man. And I just hope that, you know, people tune into the grind session, tune into Tennessee Prep. You know, you can go to our website, tennprepacademy.org, or you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter. You know, I know that's the new wave that some of these student athletes are looking at, and some professionals. You know, please tune in. You know, some of the stuff is updated. You know, we still got a lot of work to do. You know, but we're understaffed due to COVID. But definitely wanted folks to understand, like, the bubble life is real. So, you know, my team is getting prepared for the next bubble, and I just pray that we're focused and disciplined to get through the next 14 to 16 days in the bubble. 16 days compared to 5 months is big time.
Oh, wow, yeah. I forgot. I thought it was at least a whole week, but wow,
right,
that's 2 weeks and a couple of days.
And that's not being around my wife and children, who I'm around every day. Meal prep, school, PTA meetings. Like, I'm so far removed because I'm in a bubble. So, and we got to teach classes. We go to classes with the grind session. You go to your yoga instructors. You got to do it's a whole program. So it's not just show up with your basketball team. You have to follow the program. So shout out to the NBA for giving the grind session the platform or the ideas to even, think about doing this for young people to achieve their goals as far as making it to the next level.
Indeed. Well, on that note, we end. This is episode 102 of Hoop Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to our good friend Harold Rayford Jr. for coming on to share his story.
My man.
For those that support him from Newburgh, New York, Ulster County, Norfolk State, and everybody in the city of Memphis, go support Tennessee Prep, and also go support the grind session. They're an up and coming brand, a great league for high school basketball. Go check out this episode on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. Stay blessed, stay safe. Peace.
My man.